Hello, I'm joined by Richard Windsor from Edison's tech team to discuss mobile ecosystems and the year ahead. Richard, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So can you just explain briefly what the update to your analysis of the sector has shown so far?
So, the first thing we did is that we realised that the ecosystem is becoming a little bit more complicated, and so we've had to deepen the analysis a little bit. And what that means is just going into a little bit more detail in terms of what people like Apple and Google and Microsoft need to do in order to entice the user and keep them within their ecosystem, living their digital lives on their devices and using their services. The main conclusion is that although if you look at Google, and Google looks to be a very powerful company, a lot of revenues from mobile advertising, the company actually is starting to show some cracks at the edge of its ecosystem, which is starting to make one worry that they might lose market share.
And how is that? Because Google, as I understand it, has got very good coverage of people's digital lives. You know, they've got mapping, email, search, all very well covered. So where are the cracks appearing?
Well, the cracks are actually in the software that sits underneath all of their services. So the Google services are written on top of a platform called Android. And the problem with Android is it's got massive penetration right the way across the world, but every version of Android is slightly different. And what happens there is that the actual experience that the user gets is quite inconsistent. And also from a developer perspective, are you someone who wants to write an app or a service for that platform, it makes life incredibly difficult because they don't know which version to write to or how they need to change it or et cetera, et cetera. And that inconsistency has actually led to, is one of the reasons why people use Android phones less than they use the iPhone. And then also the other problem that Google has is this whole problem around updates. So if you look at Apple, for example, Apple released iOS 8, it was about September last year, and within 2 days, 33% of all Apple devices have made the update. Now, Google released their latest version of the software called Lollipop 5 months ago, but less than 2% of devices have actually got the new software on them.
Because they don't actually control.
That's right.
The notifications.
Now, the problem with that is let's just say you're Google and you've spent millions and millions of dollars improving your software and trying to fix all these problems that I alluded to before, but the software just sits on the shelf, it's useless. And so what Google needs to do going forward is Google needs to take much, much more control of Android and also to take over control of distribution of the software. And those are the only two ways that we think it can fix its problems.
And presumably that means squeezing the mobile operators and the hardware manufacturers as well.
Yeah, it's exactly what it means. Basically what it means is that it's commoditizing those guys even more than they are already. Now the issue is that is there anything that they can do about it at this point in time outside of the Chinese market? Probably not.
And so someone like Samsung, it seems to me as though they've just accepted their fate and decided that they're going to be a commoditized seller of telephones.
Yeah, they have. And if you look at the Samsung Galaxy S6, that is absolutely obvious because Samsung has pulled out all the stops to make this thing an incredible piece of hardware. You know, you've got bench screen, you've got DDR4, which is a new type of memory that's not used anywhere else. You've got special types of storage, which Samsung made itself, which works much more. It's much more quicker to read and write data, so it's just you get much better performance. And there's all sorts of little things that Samsung has done only in the hardware to try and differentiate itself.
It's interesting. Thinking of hardware, can't really ignore the fact that Apple have brought out the watch. What do you think it means for the space in general and for Apple in particular?
Well, I think for the space in general, it means that people are more actively wondering what to do with this whole wearables thing. Because I still be of the opinion that, you know, wearables are a solution looking for a problem, i.e., go back to the iPhone 2007. When the iPhone came out, it was like, wow, that really improves my life. I've got to have one of those. And that sparked a huge product cycle and a new generation of mobile computing. What does the iWatch do? Also, the Apple Watch, rather. In my opinion, not much. It's a remote control for a smartphone, but the critical bit that is missing is this really improves my life. Wow, I've got to buy one of those. And that's why when you look at the spectrum of forecast estimates, which runs from about 5 million units all the way out to 100 million units, you know, you would find us in the more conservative end of somewhere around about 10.
One thing that it strikes me that it really does change, though, is the gathering of personal data, particularly in the health space. And people talk a lot about the Internet of Things. One of the areas that it seems that the Internet of Things will make a big difference in is the gathering of health data. Could this be the first device to be as widely enough used to be of real use medically, and might that be the first step in something new?
Certainly that is the case. The issue, though, is that all the Apple Watch does is it will collect your heart rate, which is frankly is not enough. Now, there are other companies out there who are designing wearables that are able to do heart rate, blood pressure, and blood glucose, and then you start to get into this area where if you can build up a health profile, things start to get interesting. Mostly, I suspect, from the consumer point of view, because there certainly is a consumer play here, which is, if you let me monitor your health data, I will give you 30% off your premium. And that's something I think consumers would probably go for. But the other issue is that the Apple Watch is a watch replacement. Some of the other wearables, like perhaps the Microsoft Band or Fitbit or some of these other guys that don't really look, you can actually get away with wearing both a watch and a band. So you have this issue, because Apple have gone, right, we're doing a watch, they've actually got to replace the watch, and that's tricky.
Yeah, I do see. And so, thinking more broadly again, of the big ecosystem players, who are your picks for this year?
Well, we'll still put a hand up for Microsoft. We are hopefully optimistic on Microsoft. Microsoft has all the assets required to really make it work. Particularly both to consumer and in the enterprise, with what they've been doing on Office 365, for example, which is making its appeal of Office to right the way across the entire spectrum much greater. But their marketing remains dreadful. They're still failing to get that message across. And if that can change, then there's certainly a lot of upside in this company.
Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And if you'd like any more information, please do look at the Edison website.